Hello, glad you can join us. Here's what we have for you this Wednesday. A Canadian father shot dead south of the border.
It's the worst phone call I've ever had, yeah. It brought me to my knees.
A family torn apart by an act of violence.
As this is rolled out across the 4 million addresses that remain to be converted,
Canada Post delivers big changes.
We're thinking, 5th, 6th century.
Plus, thrift shop discovery, reproduction, or the real thing.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
At a time when there's constant reporting on the mass shootings and killings in the United States, a death close to home. A Canadian man living in Pennsylvania was gunned down while on a golf trip to Wisconsin. Giovanni Michael Robinson was in Sheboygan Falls when he was shot in a commercial part of town. CTV's Adrian Gabriel is in Stouffville, Ontario, with what happened and how the family is coping. Adrian.
Sandy, here in Stouffville, he's simply known by those who love him as Mike, though many also joke that he was the mayor of Stouffville because he knew so many people. His family are shattered, though they're determined to share his story of life and love. 5 weeks ago, Mike Robinson and his wife Rachel welcomed their first child, a baby girl named Farah, into the world. On Wednesday, the 32-year-old father experienced another lifetime event, sinking his first hole-in-one at a Wisconsin golf course he dreamed of playing at with friends and family. One of his first phone calls after draining the shot was to his brother Jacob back in Canada.
That phone call is just, it's playing in my head.
Mikey! Mikey!
A few short hours later, Robinson was murdered.
A subject who was shot and is not conscious, not breathing.
It's the worst phone call I've ever had, yeah. It brought me to my knees.
Robinson had just wrapped up dinner with some of those he'd golfed with that day. His family believe he was walking to his hotel in Sheboygan Falls, Wisconsin, when the young father was shot. Police believe a suspect was driving a small, dark-colored SUV.
My brother was one of a kind, and he touched a lot of people's hearts.
Speaking to CTV News from Pearson International Airport, on his way to bring home his brother's body, Jacob Robinson wants Canadians to know his brother's life story.
He was my best man, and I always joked around that, yeah, he was my little brother, but he was my big brother to me. I looked up to him in every aspect of life, and he was a true gentleman.
Robinson, a skilled hockey player, was drafted into the OHL, played in the ECHL and in Europe, and was now living in Pennsylvania, where he worked for a golf company. Robinson was scheduled to fly back to Canada next week for his sister's wedding, which is now being postponed.
My sister's wedding is going to be now my brother's funeral.
Jacob has now assumed the responsibility of keeping Mike's memory alive for his young daughter, Farah.
He loved her so much, and he loved his family.
Mike Robinson's immediate family have all arrived in the U.S. His father says they're expecting autopsy results tomorrow morning. They want to thank Canadians across the country for their prayers and their support. Sandy.
Such a sad story. Thank you, Adrian. The RCMP says it has dismantled one of the largest known dark web drug networks in Canadian history after seizing 75 kilograms of cocaine, heroin, and ketamine, along with 10,000 prescription and non-prescription pills. Investigators say 7 suspects from the Greater Toronto area have been charged in connection with the criminal enterprise known as Roadrunner. Police allege the group used the dark web to ship about 400 packages weekly across the country. Now, the way you ship packages won't change, but the way you receive mail will, and dramatically. A struggling Canada Post got directions from Ottawa today on how to get the Crown Corporation back on track. CTV's Rachel Aiello now on the major changes and how they will affect you. Hi, Rachel.
Sandy, we learned today that Canada Post is effectively insolvent, and the situation facing an institution generations of Canadians have relied on is unsustainable. So the government is forcing immediate changes to mail delivery to try and save money. how and how often Canadians' mail is delivered is changing. Today, the federal government directed Canada Post to end door-to-door delivery, lifting the decade-old moratorium on community mailbox conversions.
But I want to be clear. Canada Post has an obligation to serve all Canadians in every community in Canada, and that will not change.
While 3/4 of Canadians already receive mail in a communal location, within the next 9 years, the remaining 4 million addresses will stop seeing mail carriers at their door.
Canada Post will inform Canadians as they go.
Citing reduced demand, Canada Post is also being told to lower its letter mail delivery standard, meaning instead of it taking between 2 and 4 days for small deliveries, it could take up to 7. And changes are also coming to rural post office operations, as recently recommended by an industrial inquiry.
These measures will help stabilize Canada Post's financial situation by generating close to $500 million per year.
Since 2018, Canada Post has lost more than $5 billion and is on track to lose close to $1.5 billion more this year. And stalled labor negotiations between postal workers and management have exacerbated the crisis. Despite the minister's hope this move could bring both sides back to the bargaining table, the union is already sounding alarms about job cuts.
We're not going to take that laying down. Instead of improving the service, they're going to cut the service, so there's going to be nothing left of it.
The government says while it is removing barriers to reform, the corporation also needs to reduce costs and review its management structure. In a statement, Canada Post said it welcomes the changes and vowed to work with urgency to implement them. Sandy?
Okay, Rachel in Ottawa. Thanks, Rachel. The Prime Minister has left the nation's capital for the United Kingdom in search of new economic opportunities. When in London, Mark Carney will meet with the Prime Ministers of Britain, Spain, Iceland, Denmark and Australia with a focus on trade ties and promoting alliances. He will also meet with business leaders and investors. Now, as Mr. Carney was leaving, came word from the parliamentary budget officer that Ottawa's annual deficit is expected to balloon to $68.5 billion this year, something that will be fully revealed on Budget Day, November the 4th. CTV's Abigail Beeman digs deeper into the implications and what it means to you. Abigail.
Sandy, think of this updated financial picture as a scene setter heading into the upcoming fall budget, and it blames weaker economic growth and the trade war for the changed picture.
The parliamentary budget officer briefs a committee of MPs on his new economic and fiscal outlook.
I think everybody should be concerned. It's a really serious day.
The report projects a sharp hike to the annual deficit from $51.7 billion last year to $68.5 billion this year.
All of which will add to the cost of living for Canadians. Why is it how is it possible that any prime minister could have been more expensive than Trudeau?
A large part of that is in response to what has happened, not by choice, but we had to be there for workers. If you're in the auto sector, the steel industry, in the forestry industry, you expect your government to be there.
The report includes $115 billion in announced new spending, but notably does not include the Prime Minister's commitment to hit the NATO target of 5% of defense spending by 2035, or any of the government's spending review that's expected to hit 15% in cuts by 2029.
I think the government is in a bind right now trying to deal with this trade war and the effects on the economy.
Still so many questions around both spending and cuts unaccounted for in this update, with the budget and potential answers still 6 weeks away. Okay. Sandy?
Abigail, thanks. Ontario's premier has the answer for something he doesn't like. He calls the hundreds of speed cameras lining the streets of the province's cities a cash grab. So today, Doug Ford announced a ban on the detection devices and offered up alternative safety measures. CTV's Siobhan Morris on the timing after dozens of cameras were vandalized.
In a matter of weeks, speed cameras like this will be nothing more than expensive pieces of street art. The Premier planning legislation to turn speed cameras off this fall. While Doug Ford's government paved the way for these cameras,
it's out of control right now, and things have changed.
Calling the use of cameras to catch and fine speeders a cash grab. By November 14th, municipalities with cameras have to put up warning signs in school zones to slow drivers down. The province ready to work with them on traffic calming measures that don't involve tickets.
If you have a speed bump, you aren't zipping by at all. Or if you have a roundabout, you aren't zipping by. And the warning with the flashing signs coming at you, you know to slow down.
The plan has approval of the association speaking for Ontario police officers.
Officers are able to exercise discretion, offer real-time education, and deliver accountability in ways that cameras simply cannot.
But the Association of Chiefs of Police of Ontario have warned ending the use of cameras will put pedestrians at risk. Research from Sick Kids shows cameras have cut the number of speeding drivers in school zones by nearly half. Ford says he respects those groups, but
They'd have 0 tickets if they slowed them down. Instead, we're seeing hundreds of thousands of tickets. That's the proof. Proof in the pudding right there.
He emphasizes most municipalities don't have cameras.
Municipalities have lost the public trust on the issue of ASC cameras.
Vaughan ended its speed camera program a few weeks ago after resident pushback and an explosion in tickets.
The people of this city, and I suspect the people of Ontario, want us to focus on what I will call the real criminals.
Killers and thieves. Waterloo Region set up brand new speed cameras on roads it controls in Kitchener just yesterday. But the mayor of that city isn't a fan.
We believe that our Vision Zero initiatives, built on a foundation of changing behavior through road design and not punitive measures, has been the best tool to balance safety and affordability.
Other mayors hope they can change the premier's mind.
Mr. Ford, please leave the cameras alone. Leave them in front of schools. I know him to be a compassionate person. He does not want the injury or death of a child on his conscience.
Siobhan Morris, CTV News, Toronto.
Well, Starbucks says it is closing underperforming stores across North America as part of a $1 billion restructuring plan. The company says hundreds of stores will be shut down by the end of the year, along with cutting roughly 900 corporate jobs. Now, there's been no word yet on how many Canadian stores and employees will be affected. Starbucks has posted 6 straight quarters of declining sales in the U.S. Well, the American president was focused on his political enemies today, blaming what he calls the radical left for the shooting at the ICE office in Dallas yesterday and for rising political violence. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon was listening in. Okay, Joy, what was Donald Trump's justification for pointing fingers?
Sandy, Donald Trump has consistently blamed Democrats and what he calls those radical left extremists for this rise in political violence. The FBI today said that they do have evidence the Dallas shooter had pre-planned his attack. He left notes saying he hated the U.S. government, wanted to terrorize agents, but found no connection to any political group. Still, the U.S. president seemed to issue an ominous warning to the left. Have a listen.
The radical left is causing this problem, not the right, the radical left. And it's going to get worse, and ultimately it's going to go back on them. I mean, bad things happen when they play these games. And I'll give you a little clue. The right is a lot tougher than the left. But the right's not doing this. They're not doing it, and they better not get them energized.
Well, Joy, Mr. Trump also railed against an old nemesis, former FBI Director James Comey, who is facing charges. So what's that about?
Well, it's no secret that Donald Trump is going after his political enemies, and James Comey is top of that list. Trump accuses the former FBI director of lying to Congress about the Russia investigation into Trump 5 years ago. Comey, of course, denies it. Still, Trump is pressuring his hand-picked prosecutor to put this before the grand jury. If they take the case, Comey could be charged with perjury. But, you know, it's a high bar. Prosecutors have found insufficient evidence. Still, the president is pushing for it. Here's what he said.
They're going to make a determination. I'm not making that determination. I think I'd be allowed to get involved if I want, but I don't really choose to do so. I can only say that Comey's a bad person. He's a sick person. I think he's a sick guy, actually. He did terrible things at the FBI. And but I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen.
No love lost there, Sandy, but the clock is ticking. The deadline for an indictment runs out next Tuesday. Sandy?
Okay, Joy in Washington. Shock in a Paris courtroom today when former French President Nicolas Sarkozy was sentenced to 5 years in jail after being found guilty of criminal conspiracy. Even if Sarkozy appeals, he will have to spend time in jail.
Je suis innocent.
The 70-year-old who served as president from 2007 to 2012 was found guilty of using funds from former Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi to finance his 2007 election campaign. In exchange, Sarkozy helped Gaddafi combat his poor reputation in Western countries. Coming up, mourners ask, how could this happen?
The community and the family, we need some more explanation.
A final goodbye to a 15-year-old killed by police. A prisoner in Quebec has pleaded guilty to murdering serial killer Robert Pickton, telling the court he did it for the victims. Martin Charest said he locked himself in a room with Pickton and killed him. It happened at a maximum security prison last year. In court today, Charest said Pickton would brag about his murders to other inmates. The serial killer was convicted on 6 counts of murder, but confessed to killing a total of 49 women he lured to his BC pig farm. One of Canada's most wanted men, a convicted murderer who broke out of a BC jail, has been arrested in Qatar. Rabi Al-Khalil escaped the North Fraser pretrial center in Port Coquitlam in 2022. He was facing first-degree murder charges in a 2012 gang shooting. He's been convicted of murder twice, along with drug trafficking and conspiracy offenses. More than 1,000 mourners crowded a mosque on the south shore of Montreal for a final farewell to a 15-year-old. Nouran Rezahi was shot during a police operation. Many are demanding answers. CTV's Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Beauchemin is at the site of the memorial. Geneviève.
Sandy, the memorial here has been growing, but so has the frustration and anger over the 15-year-old's death. The father of 15-year-old Nouran Rezahi was among those carrying his casket. This after an emotional funeral in a mosque filled with grief, where a family mourned a son, teens mourned a friend.
Lots of sadness in the community. He was a young boy, a baby, like his father used to call him.
And many here are struggling to understand why the teenager was killed during a police operation last weekend.
We have a lot of respect for the job of the police that they are doing across Quebec. But in this special case, the community and the family, we need some more explanation.
After the funeral, some of Rezahi's classmates gathered at the memorial, tending to the notes, flowers and candles. Nouran was kind, respectful, says one of his friends. I'm sad, but I'm also angry. Longueuil police issued a statement appealing for calm. This after a teen Rezahi's age was arrested last night in connection with threats against an officer. Both the Montreal Police and the BEI, Quebec's police watchdog, have launched investigations. Marches have also been planned for this weekend to denounce the shooting. Organizers have asked that the events remain peaceful in honor of Rezahi. The police watchdog has asked for the community to trust the investigation, but that's a tough ask for so many here grieving. Sandy.
All right, Geneviève, thank you. And we'll be right back. After wildfires tore through Leaf Rapids, Manitoba, residents wondered what would be left of their homes. Recently, some found out. CTV's Alex Carpa has one woman's story.
A caved roof and water damage is now all that's left of Rose Biggety's home. After being away from her home in Leaf Rapids in northern Manitoba for months due to wildfires, Rose was excited to finally get back. But when she returned home earlier this week, she didn't know the nightmare that awaited her.
My couches were moldy. My daughter's bedroom, the ceiling collapsed. Everything that she had in there was mold.
Sitting outside Mom's house. Rose and her family have nowhere to live in the community and were forced to pitch a tent on their yard. Now she is once again being forced to leave her community and is heading to Thompson, about a 3-hour drive from her home, to stay in a hotel.
I don't even know if I'm coming back to stay in Leaf Rapids because there's no homes. I have no place to stay here.
Rose's son Irvin says residents should have never been let back into town if authorities assessed the homes.
You know, it's a failure on Red Cross, it's a failure on the province, a failure on the administration. And, you know, they need to be responsible about this stuff.
Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew said the province has been providing short-term help for residents like Rose, but there is long-term help coming.
Like a program for people from the Lynn Lakes and the Flin Flons, just helping to maybe get a little bit more resources out to them.
Rose is completely frustrated.
I just wanted to come home to a house where I could sleep, where I could bake, where I could cook.
On top of not knowing how long she'll be in the hotel in Thompson, she doesn't know what's going to happen to her home or if she'll even be able to return to her community. Sandy.
Alex, thank you. When we return, ancient artifacts or convincing forgeries. The unique find in a BC thrift shop. You never know what you might come across in a thrift store. Take, for example, something that a sharp-eyed shopper in Chilliwack spotted in a display case that could be thousands of years old or not. Here's CTV's BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson.
You never know what's in the bottom of a box.
Among the thousands of donations sorted through each day at Chilliwack's Thrifty Boutique, some unusual discoveries stick out.
Diamond ring in the bottom of the sock. We've had like $300 in a men's package of underwear. Ooh, that's interesting.
Their origins are sometimes a mystery, even a question of who, not what.
Hopefully, someone will come and claim Mom.
But none have attracted as much attention as the items that, even after multiple online searches, left the small army of volunteers stumped.
We just winged it, put a price on it, and threw it in the display case.
$30 for these, a collection of very old-looking rings and medallions. Turns out they may be much older than anyone could have imagined, but one shopper had a suspicion.
I guess what happened was an archaeologist came into the store, saw this collection on display, and said, "Listen, you really need to contact someone at SFU."
The items were donated to Simon Fraser University, where experts now believe they could date back as far as the 5th century AD, what was once the Western Roman Empire.
We've got potentially hundreds of generations of people who have worn these pieces or who, cared for them, who shared them, passed them down to loved ones.
They could also be forgeries. That is still a possibility. Something students will explore in a new archaeology course created specifically to study the find next fall.
It's really, really exciting to try to think about what the stories that will emerge from this research might be.
While the hunt continues here for the next treasure. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Chilliwack, BC.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Omar is here later tonight, Heather tomorrow. But first, your local CTV News is coming up. Bye for now. Be well.